big round of applause to give her starter, Jenny Napolitano!
Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. I tend to talk really softly because I have the anxiety level of like a baby bunny with natural defenses who spends her days being chased by wolves. Instead of what I am, which is essentially an apex predator with a 401k who spends her days drinking peppermint tea and staring at a laptop. So naturally I've chosen a hobby where I get on stage in front of a bunch of strangers and talk about the most vulnerable aspects of my life. I'm afraid of everything all the time, and if you are familiar with that emotion, you know about the like fight or flight reflex that you see in wild animals. And I really feel a connection to wild animals because of that. Last 4th of July, there was this flock of Canadian geese, and when the fireworks started, they all just flipped out and scattered into the night. And I spent the rest of the evening just like sobbing out of sympathy for them. I was like, I get it, geese. That's exactly how I feel every time I get an email. I am those geese on stage tonight. My brain is not able to dismiss my intrusive thoughts as unhelpful or unproductive. My brain tells me that if you believe in infinite parallel universes, that everything you're afraid of is actually happening to a different version of yourself. But it's like the wires get crossed because I imagine terrible things all day, every day, and they never end up happening. But when bad things do happen to me, they're nothing I could have even thought to be afraid of. So I'll give you an example. When I first moved to DC, I was in graduate school, and I volunteered to pick up this visiting lecturer from the train station. So naturally, I'm already terrified of this situation. I'm going through all the worst case scenarios, like what if I get pulled over for speeding? What if the car crashes? What if I pick up the wrong person and I end up in the car with a serial killer who wants to harvest my organs? But what actually happened was way worse. So a few days before her visit, we start hearing rumblings that she's maybe not the most pleasant person, and right before I went to go get her, or when professors hear that I'm going to pick her up, they make this face like, and right before I went to go get her, she called and asked for a man to come with me to carry her bags for her. So my friend James comes along for the ride, and he comes out of the train station following her, carrying her bags, and he makes brief eye contact with me and quickly shakes his head, like to say, this is already not going well. We were terrified of this woman, but we were really trying to make conversation, even though she was riding in like complete silence and giving us one-word answers to our questions. And I was trying to give a tour of DC, but I was taking the worst possible route for that to happen. I was like, if you crane your neck 145 degrees and look out the driver's side rear window, you'll see where the White House would have been if I'd started talking 90 seconds ago. I've only lived in DC a couple of years at this point, so I don't know anything about anything I'm pointing out. Like, here's the National Mall. I haven't found the food court yet, though. Here's the George Jefferson Memorial. Here's the National Mint. That's where they make Altoids. At one point I said we were approaching historic DuPont Circle, which I'm sure is a phrase I'd read on a plaque somewhere. And she asked what was historic about it, and I said, I don't know, they mentioned it on an episode of The West Wing one time. So I don't know anything about anything I'm talking about until we approach the National Cathedral, and I excitedly announced to the car that I have recently been on a tour of the National Cathedral. So I'm sure I'm going to be able to think of some fun facts. But my terrified brain goes completely blank, and I can't think of anything to say. The first thing that pops into my head is that a lot of famous people are buried there, but I can't think of who any of them were. I knew that one was a president, but I couldn't remember which president, and I'm just saying all of this out loud just to fill the silence and racking my brain trying to come up with any name, because once you've raised the subject of dead bodies, you have to come up with a name. And finally a name pops into my head. And I say it out loud. And that name is Anne Frank. And James is trying to stare a warning at me through the rearview mirror, and later he would tell me that all he could think was that she was definitely not American. Famously not Christian. And this woman is interested in what I'm saying for the first time this entire car ride. She says, Anne Frank. And I go, yeah. She says, I at the National Cathedral? Are you sure? And I go, no. And it takes me a minute, but eventually I realize that what I meant to say was Helen Keller. I'm backtracking, I'm trying to explain myself, like, you learn about them both around the same time in school. They both famously had really shitty childhoods. Both spent a lot of time in the dark. This woman was not interested in my explanation. To this day, I'm convinced there was a version of me in an alternate universe, afraid of this car ride, going, what if I get pulled over for speeding? What if the car crashes? What if I accidentally say that Anne Frank is buried at the National Cathedral? And in some other far-flung corner of the multiverse, there's a flock of Canadian geese doing stand-up comedy.